Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of TechNOW TV. My guest this afternoon is probably no stranger to many of you out there in the first responder community. It's Deputy Minister Dale McFee for Corrections and Policing, Government of Saskatchewan. Dale, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Kevin. Happy to be here.
Dale is a part of CATA's Public Safety Advisory Board and has been a strong leader within the responder community. And from the very first presentation I saw Dale provide, his theme was all about partnerships, and that's what we're here to explore today. Before we get into any deep conversation around that, Dale, why don't I give you a few moments just to tell people a little bit about your background, your professional experience, and your current role.
Sure. 27 years as a police officer, all of it in Saskatchewan and Prince Albert. Did just about 10 years as a chief of police there. I served as the president of the Saskatchewan Association of Chiefs of Police, as well as the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and now I've been in the role of deputy minister in Saskatchewan and Justice of the area of corrections and policing for the last 2.5 years. And each day is something different, and certainly I think we've got a lot of opportunities that are coming our way here in the not too distant future that are there and exist today. So certainly welcome the discussion with you.
And we're certainly looking forward to it, especially as I know from our members' perspectives, the idea of partnerships with the first responder community, while always seen as necessary, has always been found to be a bit of a challenge, given the typical operational environment that you work in, and of course the need from a policing perspective to always be seen as operating above board. And oftentimes I know there are optic issues in meeting with vendors one-on-one, but you've always been quite distinct in your messaging that you really believe that partnerships are required. As I mentioned, my first experience in meeting with you was when you were talking about the unique community program you set up in St. Albert, bringing together the distinct groups responsible for community well-being and creating a bit of a conglomerate approach to addressing issues within the community. Do you want to spend a moment or two just informing people the success of that project?
Yeah, well, sure. And I mean, it's basically at the crux of what we're talking about today, and it's data and it's technology, and data, not only how we gather it, but how we use it. And what we're really talking about is evidence-based outcomes. And I think the future, what the future holds for us, basically is in our hands to actually change the way some of the business is being done. So. Yeah, we've obviously, what you're referring to in Prince Albert is the hubs and the cores, where we have enterprise, health, social services, education, police, and others all under one roof. And if you think about the justice system and you actually think about how it works today, majority of this stuff we wait for people to get in trouble and then we tell them how to fix them. But if you think about what that teacher knows, what the health knows, and if you take it out of a police environment and you look at it in a community environment or a human resource environment, think of all the information, and if we're able to share that respectfully and respectful of the privacy laws, just think how we can move upstream and actually change that. And what you really find is you can take a lot of this stuff out of the system. But that's only one aspect. In Saskatchewan now we're going beyond that. We've kind of, as some refer to as moneyballing. I like the movie, and I'm sure you've seen the movie. It's using data and analytics to actually look at what the landscape could be. And if you're looking at policing in particular, and pretty much right across the country, and certainly in other areas of the world, there seems to be 3 key drivers of policing, and those 3 key drivers: mental health and addictions, for the obvious reasons. And I certainly can give you stats and data on that. The hubs and the cores or intervention strategies, the upstream stuff. We now know we have enough data that we, in time, can take 30 to 40% of the calls out of the system, and then we can actually reinvest that resources into what needs to be done. And then the serious violent offenders, the third area, and these folks are responsible for 50% of recontact. So think if you use data and science and technology to drill into focus, and then I can get into the system stuff as well. But really what you have the ability is to move upstream, get a better product, a better result, and actually probably attain more of the outcomes that you can, because let's face it, we're stretched for resources, everybody is, and you know, it's always been said that technology doesn't cause transformation. What it actually does is accelerates it, and what it does is make sense of it. And so when we actually look at it from that perspective, I think we really have the ability to gain somewhat of the competitive advantage in actually dealing with a lot of the social issues.
And so a lot of that work led to a relatively new initiative that you've started up in the province called the Saskatchewan Community Safety Knowledge Alliance. You want to spend a moment letting us know the significance of that particular initiative?
Well, we have the hubs and the cores, and you know, and then we have the serious violent offender, and we have the mental health. But we're trying to put an umbrella Community Safety Knowledge Alliance where we can dial in and focus on, you know, real-time research. How do we use what we call research plus practice to drive alignment and ultimately to an outcome? So an example of that is basically, you know, what can we work on horizontally in real time to actually make a difference in the front line? We all know that the results need to be at the local level, but how can we align resources to actually work effectively together? And if we can actually use a cross-section of academia and practitioners, and if we can actually tie the research into relevant stuff that makes a difference, then perhaps what we can actually drive is the right alignment, or the right working on the right things in the right area at the local level. So we're busy trying to put that together. We've got a lot of good stuff going on that in relation to doing some cross-training, in relation to basically looking at, you know, a combination of private sector, public sector, putting a small board together and actually making sure that we're leveraging all those levers available to us to actually get help to people in as close to real time as possible. And as I said, not all those need to be in a policing environment. We've long said as police officers and police chiefs and police leaders is that we need to get our partners involved, and police make very good connectors. And when you put data and you put the actual communication strategy and the technology in part of that, it makes it a lot easier to go upstream. And upstream, as we know, is a lot more cost effective, but it's not just about cost effectiveness. It's, you know, how do we get help to people that are in need at an earlier opportunity? So I think we're just, you know, starting to really, in other parts of the country and other provinces as well, are really starting to look at evidence-based outcomes, which is driven by data and technology and the ability to use that information differently in a different context in a more proactive manner. I would say, and I would argue strenuously, that as police officers and police leaders, we're very good on the reactionary. We're very good on the serious stuff. We pride ourselves. It's a very significant part of our profession that obviously relates to community safety, and we're doing a great job. And just think of the opportunities when we use that same kind of thinking and go upstream into a proactive manner, and then correlate those two to actually drive the synergies, which we're calling alignment. I think you really can change the way the business is being done.
And while it is currently started in Saskatchewan, I know through our discussions at the board, there really is a need for a national center of this nature. So the intention really is to grow this alliance beyond Saskatchewan's border. So you're not precluding anyone from reaching out to you and asking, how can I get involved?
Oh, absolutely not. This isn't about Saskatchewan. I mean, we learn as much from other provinces, you know, as we hope that they learn from us. And at the end of the day, we're trying to deal with the same issues and the same problems. And let's face it, in Canada, there's only one taxpayer, and that always comes into the ability to pay. I think it's important and paramount that, you know, we are working collaboratively and collectively together, and we're pushing each other to new limits. You know, we've got, you know, some things we lead, some things we're getting from other areas. We've got a unique partnership formed with the province of Ontario and Deputy Minister Theresian and some of his folks, and we have them with others. And I think you'll see some of that in the economics of policing summit that's coming up here early next week, as you're seeing that everybody's trying to get to the same place, and we're doing a lot better job of leveraging each other's expertise and realizing that it's not about who gets there first. It's about that we collectively get there together, and that we constantly push each other to get better each day. So I think it's a really, really good opportunity right now in the economic climate to actually look at some of the things that innovation can actually drive to help supplement. So being an old Westerner, I always compare it to the A&Ws, which you don't mess with the onion rings, the teen burger, the root beer, but you can look at everything else to add value. So policing has some core principles involved with it, and I think it's paramount that we make sure those are protected and that we continue to do it. But I think we'd be remiss if we don't look at others and some of the innovative practices we can to bring others along and certainly help us with our ultimate goal, which is to make communities safer.
And I know that you are presenting next week at the Economics of Policing Conference. I'm looking forward to attending it. And I know that your topic, again, is focused on partnerships. Without giving away the whole context of your presentation, what are some of the key partnership themes that you're going to be expressing next week?
Well, I think it's, for me, it's kind of drilling into those things that the moneyballing, what drives the system or drives the work. How do we use data to relieve that? How do we align the system so the system is actually supporting what the work needs to get done? And then really, really focusing on alignment and evidence-based outcomes, which ultimately needs technology, which ultimately needs the appropriate information sharing to actually get upstream. And I want to be really clear, though, that this isn't at the expense. One isn't at the expense of the other. The conversation that's starting to change, I think, is we always used to hear a political conversation about hard on crime, which is arrest and incarcerate, or soft on crime, which is intervention and prevention. And I think across this country, the conversation is slowly starting to shift to smart on community safety, which means you don't forget about one for the other or expensive one at the other. You need to do this stuff at the same time, and you need to be good at all areas if you're really going to leverage or maximize your returns. So I think that's something I know in Saskatchewan we're really focused on. I know a lot of other provinces are doing some great things in that particular area too. And I look at an event like this as what other stuff can we learn? How can we make ourselves better? And if we can share a little bit that if somebody's been there, done that, why would we beat our head against the wall and try it again if somebody's either has the answer why we should or shouldn't do it? So I just think things like this brings forward thinkers together, and hopefully you can get another nugget, share a nugget, and ultimately go back to your home communities and continue to progress along the path of making communities safer.
So in terms of partnerships and creating partnerships with you and the ministry directly, what advice would you have for companies or other associations out there that want to get involved and are looking for the best place to start? How would they engage with you and the initiative?
Well, I think the direct approach is always the best, and certainly we are talking to folks all the time. I mean, I think in the end of the day, a lot of getting to some of these partnerships, were they easy to get there? No. It's all about leadership. It's about respectfully stepping on some toes. At the end of the day, if somebody has a good idea or a better way, I think it's just crucial and pertinent that we're listening and with an open mind and open ears. And I think we're certainly in our province right now, and I don't think it's any different in the country, is we're all searching to become better. I think I could make a fair statement that law enforcement in Canada is very good. A lot of the issues that we're talking about really need partnerships outside law enforcement, and we need to start having a common vision and common goals. I think that's coming. We're ultimately trying to get to a different place in relation to how we enhance community safety. But let's not mix up community safety with just enforcement, because they're related, but they're not dependent on each other. And I think you obviously need the enforcement perspective, but to have true community safety, we also need to go upstream with our partners and realize that not all of these answers lie in the justice system. As a matter of fact, most of them don't.
Well, that's great, Dale. I really appreciate your taking the time today to discuss a little bit more of your philosophies around partnerships. You're going to be presenting next week on what day at the Economics of Policing event?
I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, it is Tuesday. I'll be speaking on Tuesday.
Will we have the privilege of your attendance for most of that event?
Yeah, I'm coming in Monday. I was hoping to get out Sunday, but I'll hopefully get half a day on Monday and then the full day on Tuesday and the morning of Wednesday. So, I look forward to these things. Public Safety Canada has put a lot of work into this. The provinces have all participated. They've got some great speakers with a lot of wealth and a lot of knowledge. They've got a lot of innovators, and at the end of the day, I think it's the economics of policing, quite frankly, where it's going, certainly in our province, is all about supply and demand. And if you think about that, we've probably been really, really focused on the supply side. I know we have. And I put it to the kind of simple analogy as this, is if I'm sucking on a garden hose, I can only take on so much water. I bring in Kevin, he starts to drink some water, and then he brings on Joe, who tries to drink some water, and then we find this really smart young lady named Mary who comes and turns down the tap. That's really what economics is how do we turn down the tap so we can actually use the system more effectively and start to deal with some of the things that are obviously big issues in this country and then certainly in our province. So, that's what I'm looking forward to is looking at the full spectrum, and I think this is a huge opportunity, and I mean it leads into some of the things that you've been really involved in this whole looking at the D block and the information sharing as you go forward, and you're looking at how we get a spectrum out there. I think you just need to turn on a TV, or you need to look at what's happening, or if you're following it anyway. A long story short is we're going to need more of this, because data, information sharing, interoperability, and the ability to work together will become paramount to the success of community safety. And it's not just in the future, it's pretty much now if you turn on the TV.
Well, and thanks for that, Dale. I mean, the Public Safety Broadband Network initiative obviously requires partnerships across the board. But I want to save that topic for another day, because I know that you have a lot to say on the need for that network, and I want to be respectful of the time we asked of you today. I'm hoping that anyone watching this be able to join the Economics of Policing event next week. I know it is sold out, but otherwise, Dale, is there a way that working through us or with us, if someone watching this today wants to reach out to you directly, how would they do that?
Well, certainly either through yourself or through my office at the Government of Saskatchewan. We'll work obviously to have a response to somebody. And I'm just Deputy Minister of Corrections and Policing in Saskatchewan. I've lost your picture here, Kevin, so I'm not sure if I'm still on the air or not. But certainly I can get you an email or something as well if that's something you'd like.
I'm seeing you perfectly clear, Dale, and I'm sure our audience is as well. Through the magic of post-production, I'll throw up that email address so people know how to reach your office. And for now, then, I will thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy, and especially on a Friday, like all of us, looking forward probably to getting home, because I know you've been on the road. So I'll leave it at that, and again, thanks a lot, Dale, for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to having you back again in the very near future.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate your work and appreciate your time.